An insurance clerk at a large corporation rents out his apartment to supervisors who are having affairs. But things get complicated when one of the women involved is someone he knows. That's the premise of the 1960 dramatic comedy The Apartment, starring Jack Lemmon, Shirley MacLaine, and Fred MacMurray. And it's the movie we're dusting off this week on Movie Bones.
Look, kid, I put in a good word for you with Sheldrake and personnel.
Mr. Sheldrake?
That's right. We were discussing our department, manpower-wise, promotion-wise. I told him what a bright boy you are. They're always on the lookout for young executives.
Thank you.
You're on your way up, buddy boy, and you're also out of liquor.
Oh, I know. Mr. Eichelberger, Mortgage and Loan Department. Last night he had a little Halloween party.
Yeah, well, lay in some vodka and some vermouth and put my name on it.
Yes, Mr. Kirkaby. You still owe me for the last 2 bottles.
Yeah, I'll pay you on Friday. Oh, and whatever happened to those little cheese crackers you used to have around?
That is the voice of C.C. Baxter talking to one of his supervisors who's just taken advantage of The Apartment, of the movie's title. Baxter has inadvertently gotten into the habit of loaning out his living space to his superiors, who mostly use it as an off-site location for their extramarital liaisons. And as far as he's concerned, he'd just rather not know what's going on behind the scenes. But that does change, doesn't it, Ryan?
It very much does. But there's a couple of reasons why it winds up changing. It's very much an up and down journey.
It is. And, in the beginning, it presents itself as kind of very rather, I would say, lighthearted. It's definitely showing off its comedy bona fides in the beginning, in the first third of the film. And it does have some serious things on its mind. You can tell it's dealing with this guy who's, he's being taken advantage of, right? It's like for whatever reason, he tries to explain it. He tries to explain it to someone else who asks him about it. That it's like, it just started out as a favor for somebody initially, and then word gets around. Now it's being used for these liaisons by his superiors. You can imagine the position that puts him in, right? It's like, what if he lets them down? That could spell trouble for him at work. And he's actually turning down promotion opportunities, too, if he doesn't do this, too. So, and he would love to get out of there. You can tell his job's not the greatest. He works in a very nameless kind of, it's almost like the Kafka-esque, with that kind of isolation in a crowd kind of a thing when he's surrounded by those other people, typewriters and everything.
Yeah, and there's something about that whole part of his life, and just that's one of the reasons why I was more drawn into this movie. Just makes you really wrestle with different aspects of life and how different aspects of life are really similar in many ways.
I mean, I would put it even more specifically. There's that corporate culture, and you can start to probably see that emerge out of the 50s into the 60s as you're getting more of that kind of, big business mindset. And you have these huge firms now, and you start to get that feeling of you're just a nameless cog. And the way that he's put under all this pressure, it puts you in his corner right away. The way that it's written, it really makes you feel for him. I mean, he's got just besides the guy he's talking to, he's got at least 3 other guys at the beginning of the movie who are taking advantage of his space. He doesn't even get to actually use his space. And even his work day, it's like, he starts every day at work by spending, I don't know, the only thing we get to see him do is make appointments in his book and changing them around to see who's going to be spending the night at his apartment.
Yeah.
I never actually get to see him do his job.
It doesn't unfold this for us slowly. A lot of what it does, it gives us the information outright. He's a smart character. He's a very smart character. Shows us right there at the beginning that he's really good with numbers. He's very good with probabilities and statistics and things like that. And so, and we don't get to see his worth. Why don't we get to see his worth? Again, it's because he's being used for a different reason than what he wants to be known for or maybe used for. And again, it's just, it's one of those, the square is really a circle kind of situations because, the same, and even though this movie doesn't really touch on this, it can be a commentary on this. You talk about things like, prostitution and what prostitution really is. And again, it's the same thing. Even though it looks like it's different, it looks different. You're really being told all of this is essentially the same. And that's devastating. It's sad. And, because, you have but you have four men who are just taking advantage of everybody, and they're just getting away with it.
So you guys probably know by now, it's like Pope Francis has died, but one of the big things of his pontificate was this whole denouncing of the culture of use, which pervades not just in terms of, yes, in prostitution and sex trades and stuff like that, but also in the business world. It is pervasive. And here you're stating what is I don't know how far back you can go. I guess use has always been part of human culture, but with humanity's entering into the mass production era, it's almost like this mass production of use as well of human beings. And so you get that here too. You introduce Shirley MacLaine's character. I think her name, it's Fran Kubelik. They introduce her character in an offhanded way. You can see that Cece's attracted to her. They like each other, but you don't really get into the meat of her story until about 40%, halfway through the film. And then you start to see the parallels really come out between them. And that really was something else. I was like, and the way she's being used and the way that it's portrayed is, and this goes to the screenwriting too. You can have a movie where you can have these themes and it wouldn't be as beautifully drawn as this. And I just want to play something really quickly here because this really gets to the heart of it for me.
Merry Christmas.
What is it? Oh. Our friend at the Chinese restaurant. Thanks, Fran. We better keep it here.
Yeah, we better.
Oh, I have a present for you. I didn't quite know what to get you. Besides, it's kind of awkward for me shopping, so here's $100. You go and buy yourself something, huh?
You see, on one level, you've got just something that's a simple gift exchange, right? But the meaning behind everything that's being said here, the gift that she gives to Sheldrake is personal. It's got meaning to what she thinks is emblematic of the relationship. Mm-hmm. And then he turns around and gives her $100 because he can't think of anything specific to get her. First of all, that's a bad sign. But it comes off because money is the most generic thing you can actually give someone, unless they actually asked for it, right? It's like if you just giving someone a gift that you're supposed to know and know really well, it's you're just giving them money. It's like that's, in this case, especially given their nature of their relationship, is heavily indicative of like prostitution. And she takes it that way because, and she's not saying it out loud. And on top of that, it's also the fact that the gift that she gave to him has to be hidden. Like it's shameful, right? And it all feeds into the same thing. But there's no actual mention of prostitution, but you get that clearly as an audience. This is what, and you can see it in her face and everything. It's the writing, it's the performances and everything that bring that so perfectly together. And that's one of the great things about this movie. I love the subtlety there.
I do too. I feel like there was one moment where she says, like, this is all I'm worth, or something along those lines. It's forcing us to wrestle with who she is to this man. And who she is to this man is nothing.
Yeah.
Like, he pretends like he loves her. He pretends that he's willing to, he even says, like, early on when they first start, like, oh, I would leave you for my wife, but I've got this, and this going on.
Yeah.
It would just be like it's just not a good time. And we know, having watched other movies, we know having taken, watched other, consumed other media that has anything to do with this kind of stuff. We know it's like, he never, ever had the intentions of doing anything like that.
If you guys have ever known anyone out there who's been strung along in a dead end relationship, mm-hmm. That's, it's like it becomes a pathology. The dominant one is just trying to, it's just trying to string them along to keep them going, just to get out enough of them until they think they've got enough out of them, and then they can discard them. And that's essentially what's going on here. And you get that laid out by the secretary, right? She's been there before, and
she was the first one. Or that she was one of the ones, and there was many more before her, and there's going to be many more after.
To the point
Fran's
where
character.
It's like, I think at some point they actually list them and tell the audience is shown or told exactly how many years that Fred McMurray's character has been married.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you divide the number of years he's been married by the number of people she listed off, that's like an affair almost at least every couple of years, if not every year and a half or something. It was something ridiculous. It's like, how you've been doing this from the very beginning, dude. It's like, have you ever been? It's like, this is basically, it's like he got married, but it's like, I don't know. It's like, there's a story there by itself. I'm not interested in the story. It has nothing to do with the thing, but it's like, when you think about it, it's like, yeah, wow. But you see how practiced he was. It's like, he almost had, I knew he was a bad guy. He's a bad guy, but when you don't know about the history until later in the movie, but when you see them sit down at the Chinese restaurant that first time and they're talking about it, he almost has a way of convincing you that he really would like to do it. You know, he really would like to leave his wife. And now I'm not saying that's good either. That's terrible too. The scene in the middle, though, the one that really caught my attention, where it's like she reacts by trying to kill herself with the suicide scene. And the response to that I was not prepared for the kind of detail they were going to go into. Did you feel that too?
Like
of getting her back, you know?
Yes.
It was it's pretty violent trying to keep a person from dying, you know, from sleeping pills.
I was there thinking, I was like, you know, because like, you know, now we would just, obviously we would take her to the hospital. We would do this, and this. And like, you know, this doctor's doing very, very practical things.
Yeah.
And like, you know, you see him like, you know, putting stuff in her system and then making her do this, and this, and then slapping her. But he's not doing it like I'm not doing it in a violent way. He's just trying to, you know, first off, get her to wake up and then keep her awake. This movie breaks down barriers. And what I mean by that is there was a lot of people out there that I read that weren't a fan of this movie. And why? It wasn't because it was a bad movie, but because it tackled big subjects. And we're getting out of that time where they wanted more family-friendly stuff.
Right.
And you see, like, the Wall Street scenes in this movie are no different from movies like The Wolf of Wall Street or the other movies like just Wall Street. Like, movies that have people that are really into money and numbers and how they live their lives in a very fast and loose way.
It's very predatory. It's very predatory. Yeah.
He puts that on display. And I think this is like one of those first movies where you really see it on display. When they're in the business building, everything goes really quick. That's how like that's supposed to be portrayed. It's just that quickness of everything. So like you're not really getting a lot of time. Like you even see there's like one scene where he's just getting phone calls back and forth and he doesn't have no time to breathe. And it's just like that's how it keeps happening. He has no time to really sit down and ask himself, is what I'm doing right?
Yeah.
You know, is this morally correct? Because they don't really give him time to sit with it. They're just like, I want this, I want this, I want this. Very predatory, like you said. And it just captures that just so very well and uses it to push the story in the direction he needs it to go for everything to happen. And there's very few times in this movie where things just kind of slow down. The scene where they're in there, he's trying to wake her up and everything, and the doctor is.
Yeah.
That's like one of the slower scenes in the movie.
It's weird to say that because it's one of the scenes that had my pulse going a little bit higher. Because they really, despite the fact that you kind of know that she's going to live, for a scene that has that much at stake, for strangely one of the more slowly paced scenes in the film, yeah, it was a weird thing. Jack Lemmon's insistence, I guess for a little bit it got me off guard, was Jack Lemmon's kept insisting that we're trying to nudge her back to the relationship. Maybe it's because he thought that's what she wanted and needed to keep her from committing suicide again, was to be back with this guy. Because of the separation. I think that's the only thing that makes sense. But it's like, no, dude, use your instincts. You know, maybe he just didn't have those kind of instincts, and his instincts are in numbers.
I did see it that way. I saw it that way. I also saw like he's just so dejected by that point that, you know, I don't know. There's a bit of cynicism there. Like, you know, I'm surprised it didn't get brought up. Period. But that kind of thought that some people have, like, oh, you're just going to go back to him anyway, so why don't you just go ahead and go back to him now?
Yeah. It could be, it doesn't make it explicit or on the surface of what he's thinking, except for the fact that he kind of realizes it's never going to be with her. He would like to. I think in his heart of hearts, he kind of would like to, but it's just become too much, I think, for him that way. It's a great performance from him too. I think Shirley MacLaine still takes the honors in terms of if I was to rank what the actors are all doing here. But I was surprised even by the doctor, the next door neighbor doctor, as a kind of a string character, he really left an impression on me too. As third string characters go, they even reached that deep into the cast and really came out with some really bangers, I think, in terms of performances all the way through. Yeah, that was just another example of it. I kind of like the fact that it did have a lighter ending, you know? What do you think?
Folks, it is on a good note. I think she goes and she talks to Jeff. And when she talks to him, you know, he starts telling her about how Cece, has just, up and quit. And that makes her realize that there's someone actually out there that cares more about her or cares more about people than what this corporate life offers. And that's one of the things I think that, I think she liked him from the start. I really do. One of the reasons why she didn't want to pursue that path is because even though she's not telling us this, she thinks he's just a part of that world. And in many ways, he is definitely a part of that world. He's someone that's not rooted in that world. He wants to be because he thinks that that's like the way to live. We also see glimpses of him. He wants more than what the life that these men are living. And so, it's a beautiful scene when she realizes that he is really that person. And she sees right through it. She finally sees it because Cece is willing to sacrifice everything to get rid of that life. And when she realizes, oh, he actually does care about people, she's willing to go to him. And we're left with a scene of just, they're just hanging out.
And I love the fact that it's like, because of how courage is contagious, when you see someone who's willing to give up something for for the sake of being a better person, it makes a real difference. It's like, it makes her ask the question too, is like, why am I putting up with this? Why do I have to put up with being used? And the only reason I think people do that is because they don't see hope anywhere else. Why do we put up with being used? That we're talking about this and about this movie, I think that adds so much value to its rewatchability, to its value in general. It's got a lot of value to it. Much like Sunset Boulevard does for the Hollywood aesthetic. This does it for the corporate aesthetic. This is getting to more material aspects of the film, but one of the more those nice little touches that you can get in movies like this, especially when it's done by a really great director, there's a sense of the time and place specifically that this film was made in. Because there's a scene early on where Cece is doing, he's trying to clean up the mess from one of his quote unquote tenants, and he's popping a frozen meal into the oven that has to be lit by hand. Here is a period in time where you actually still have apartments where you have, manually lit gas ovens. It's a frozen dinner. And it's that is a very indicative of a time and place. And he's doing this, and the movie spends about, I don't know how many minutes, just getting to know him as he's cleaning up. And you learn so much without any words even about him. And it's using the environment, it's using the period and the location, and it's using everything to its advantage. It is immersive. That's another thing I haven't mentioned yet. It's totally immersive in its time and place. And I appreciated that as well about it.
One of the things I really enjoyed about this movie, and I think this is one of the first real portrayals of New York I've ever really seen. You had that New York accent. And I've never been to New York. I know you have. But yeah. I don't know, just someone who's watched it and seen things, I was like, this feels like New York.
I mean, it felt certainly enough like New York that to get across the idea that that's where you were at. I mean,
yeah.
And you have the cultural slice of life thing. You have all the strata of society. You've got obviously the business CEO types all the way down to, this doctor and who's living in the same apartment building. And even people, lower than that too. Even it's like you see at the bar, you see some people who are in worse straits than even Jack Lemmon is. In some ways, they even mentioned the Majestic Theater, which I don't know if I've been to that particular one to see a Broadway play or not, but I do know the Majestic Theater is a real theater in New York City, and it's played some of the big names over the years in terms of the shows that have been played there. So I recognize that.
That was another thing. There was so many movies that they referenced, not referenced, but they talked about. And I did go look them up, and every single thing, every single media that they referenced in this is a real thing.
So for example,
that movie at the very beginning, yeah, it's a real movie.
oh yeah, The Music Man.
Yeah.
I
didn't know that.
It was a play. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was in grade school, and the high school was looking for. It was putting on a production of The Music Man, which, if you guys aren't familiar with it, involves, some huckster coming into a town and swindling them while also teaching a little school, little kind of kids marching band kind of thing. And they needed kids my age at the time to play that kind of the student band that he was going to teach. And all I had to do was stand on stage with my trombone and just blow random notes into the thing. And I remember the uniform I actually had to play for that. So the Music Man actually has some special connection to me, even if I'm not really a big fan, oddly enough, of the musical itself. I have some sentiment towards it anyway because of that. That's a side note. But anyway, yeah. So, yeah. So is it any mystery where we're going to come down on this? I mean, do you want to go first? Do you want to go first?
It's just fortune and glory all the way.
Okay. Anything more you want to add to it? Just to kind of sum it up?
You got to watch this film. There are heavy subjects, but I mean, it's a good film. It's a really well-rounded story. It doesn't beat around the bush with you.
It's funny when it needs to be too.
It's funny. It's dramatic. It will pull your heartstrings. It's such a vibrant world. I mean, you just got an amazing story on your hand. Like, there was times I was like, you know what? If you'd have told me that he made a follow-up movie that was just following the life of that doctor and his wife, I'd watch it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Those little details that come out in the side characters, it's like they just feel interesting on their own. And that's not even, and you don't see many movies that do go that deep into those third tier characters. So really appreciate that too. As for me, well, I think it'd be unfair for me to compare it to like the perfection of Sunset Boulevard, which is practically the perfect movie for both of us, I think. It is an example of the perfect movie. It's not fair to compare it to perfection, but it's still an outstanding piece in its own right. It deserves many repeat viewings. I would own a copy of this in my movie library, and you could actually make this an easy double billing, a double feature with Sunset Boulevard, if you had enough time for it, to sit down and watch a double feature because they're long movies. But yeah, it just perfectly matched thematically, and they're both pretty much equally well done. So yeah, this is Fortune and Glory all the way, all the way. In any case, folks, at this time, we like to remind our listening audience out there that if you're having a good time with Ryan and me, dusting off these old movies in search of celluloid treasure, do like, subscribe, comment, and of course, follow us on your podcast purveyor of choice. Tell us what you think we got wrong, because we're not perfect, and go ahead and clue us in on a few titles you'd like us to see cover on future episodes, as long as they're available for free on Tubi, because this adventure comes with no strings attached. And on the subject of next week's film, what's showing next week, Ryan? What is showing?
I'm actually kind of interested in this movie. And I think I've seen some things about it before. Maybe. I could be wrong. But next week's movie is starring Vincent Price, Carol O'Mart, Richard Long, and directed by William Castle. An eccentric millionaire invites 5 people to a party at a haunted house, promising $10,000 to anyone who survives a night of terror locked inside. I am 100% certain I have seen different parodies of this movie in TV shows. I'm going to have to look that up now. But the movie is titled The House on Haunted Hill.
Maybe you can look something up, because I have a memory of someone doing a remake of this, not, maybe about 10, 15 years ago. I don't know when exactly. I'm not going to pinpoint down, but within my lifetime. If you guys find out anything about that, let me know, because I'd be interested in just seeing if there's an update about it. Anyway, yeah, Vincent Price, our last film with him it was kind of a mediocre one. Hopefully we can do better this time. So anyway, folks, that's about it. Until next week, Ryan, I'll see you next week. And folks out there, we'll see you next week, okay?
Goodbye.
Bye-bye, folks.
What's gotten into you, Baxter?
Just following doctor's orders. I've decided to become a mensch. You know what that means? A human being.